Support for programming provided by Construction Professionals. Learn more at cpcustomhomes.com.
Man Up, a program dedicated to inspiring and helping men live lives of heroic virtue. And now, it's time to man up.
Welcome to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are broadcasting on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I am Joe Stopulos, and today is part 2 of the interview I had with my father a couple years ago during our Heroic Fatherhood series. Let us start in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our defense against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Part 1 last week, again, these are tough for me to go through, to be totally honest with you, really reflected a lot on his upbringing with his own father, which is again, kind of this beautiful look into the past of what it was like to grow up in the 1950s and 60s, which is just so different than today, and also his relationship with his own father-in-law, and the two great fathers that he got to see kind of firsthand, and that kind of set the stage for today. So today we'll kind of move into his upbringing of us 6 children and what that was like growing up in the 90s, and what were some of the things that he as a father wanted to impart into his children and then into his grandchildren. And so today's episode definitely turns more towards that. And again, this is not an easy thing for me to do at this point, but again, how blessed I am to have done this. And as I said last week, I just encourage you. You're blessed to still have parents alive today. Maybe grab a microphone, invest in a little equipment, and have a conversation with them, asking them all the questions about what it was like growing up when they did, because times are so different, and it's a keepsake to be able to understand where we came from and hear these stories firsthand from the people who lived them and built our families. So we're gonna head to a short break, and we will be right back.
My help comes from you.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. Excited today to be joined once again by my father, Mike Stopulos, as we continue this Heroic Fatherhood series. Dad, welcome back to the show.
Joe, good to be with you again.
All right. So we're going to I'll give a quick recap. I think it's not surprising that we didn't make it past 20 minutes, with the fact that we had to cover your own father, Papu, Jim Stopulos, and then Carl Liebscher, because you had these incredible examples. So in the last episode, go back and listen to it if you haven't already, which is to say, my dad was blessed by having an incredible father in his own right with Jim Stopulos and the example he was. And then into his life comes his father-in-law, my mom's dad, Carl Liebscher, who, again, I've done episodes on both these men, and they both deserve more than that. They deserve, entire books written about them. That's the kind of guys these guys were. And so the example that you had set for you, Dad, and I think we hit on it a few times last episode, which is to say that the love of spouse and the dedication to marriage through loving your wife, right? So loving the Lord and loving your spouse first and foremost before anything else was an example that you saw both in your father and your father-in-law. And so, we never even made it last episode past that, essentially past the examples you had. And so now looking forward here, we got to hear about your own fatherhood, right? So you are a father of 6 quasi wonderful children. And, give me a breakdown. I think I'm getting this question a lot because I've got 6 kids. Did you want 6 kids? Did you plan on 6 kids? Because you came from a family of 4. Your mom came from a family of 8, a little bigger. Was this in your game plan from all along, or how did that happen?
Well, you know what? We just knew we wanted to have a large family. We didn't put a number on it, but 6 seems symmetrical, and 3 and 3 seem to be. Well,
and I say that, it's interesting. I tell people this is wild for me because my siblings, we were born between 80 and 90, so 10 years, and it's boy, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl. I currently have 6 kids between 12 and 22, and they are girl, boy, girl, girl, boy, boy. So literally 10 years, exact amount of time in between, and the exact inverse of relationship of gender. And so I'm in the middle of reliving my childhood to some extent. But so you grew up in a pretty tight knit family. Mom did as well. And so when you're entering fatherhood, kind of give me your, if you can even remember back to having one kid or what it was like when you get started, what were those things you first learned? What were some of those lessons that you learned right off the bat in becoming a father?
Well, first of all, it was a blur. I mean, when the bullets start flying, it just starts, it's hard to realize what you're in the middle of. And I think part of that is, if I were to give everybody some advice, especially like you with kids, it's just, because time flies so fast and it's a blur, that in and itself is a lesson. You have to take time to savor your family and whenever you can. And it's easier said than done, but take a step back and every once in a while and from the chaos and kind of take stock of where you are and enjoy the ride. Appreciate, each child for their unique personalities. And, I just know that we were just changing diapers, and we were just getting by from, day to day. And there was no game plan. I mean, it was living hand to mouth. And, Mary Fran gave up a great career at Deere. We decided early on that, life changed so much from when, I was born and raised. There was very few women worked. Matter of fact, there was only one in our entire neighborhood, and she was an attorney, and she ended up being a state representative for a long time, and just a really bright, wonderful woman. But all the other mothers were at home, and that's just what we knew. And but fast forward to when Pete was born, and in 1980, and boy, that had changed. But Mary Fran had a phenomenal job with Deere. She was an actuary by education, and she was on a track at Deere in a new called Management Science, which was kind of a new division of Deere that solved problems with by doing through software. And but we decided early on, I mean, she was making more money than I was. And we thought it was more important that she be home with the kids. And so, step one was huge sacrifice. She was making more money, but we thought it was very important that she be home with the kids. So that was the first thing we decided. And what a great decision. And, I wish everybody could take that decision, but it's not easy. It's anymore. And I get that. But I think it really helped you guys in having mom, who was a lot like Carl, very measured, creative person to at home to guide you during the day while I was out trying to make a living. And it was tough, but it really, I guess the biggest lesson is, you've got to just take that time. And one regret I have probably, you don't remember so much things as you do places and experiences. And, you take your kids on these wonderful trips. And I wish we'd done more of that with you guys. We only took a few of them because those are what you take with you through your life. And it's not the Christmas present you got when you're 11. You don't even remember what it was. But it's experiences. And they don't have to be grand vacations. But any way you can bond as a family is cool. And that, I wish I'd done a little bit more of that.
The problem with you, Dad, is you would never sleep on the floor of a forest.
No, that would not happen. That's
it would look different. That's for sure.
My idea of roughing it is a Red Roof Inn. So
yeah, we would have to do something a little differently.
Yeah.
No, and I think so. Your point right at the bat there with mom, I think is apt, and we're not going to get into your financial situation, but it was not always this beautiful rosy picture, right? And so you guys had many years there where the markets changed and things changed, and and I will say this, you guys, we never knew that as kids. We knew that our friends got way more Christmas presents than us and birthday presents, and they got to do fun things like, trips and things that we didn't do. So we saw that, right? But we never knew the dire situations we were in because you guys were so steadfast on we're going to keep them in Catholic schools and we're going to kind of shield them from what's going on. My point of that is your decision to have you and mom to have mom stay home is obviously I use the line from Gopa, that decision to marry Nana had generational effects for the positive. And I would say the same thing, it would be the case with having mom stay home. Having mom stay home allowed us to have this incredible childhood, this incredible upbringing because she stayed home. Obviously, financially, you guys could have retired like 15 years ago if she would have stayed in there or whatever the number would have been, but you didn't. But I would say you chose the better part because of the investment you guys made in the kids. And back to your point, the memories that we have being with mom, being together as a family, especially in the summers, those are special memories that, no amount of money could have replaced, right? No amount of financial security could have replaced that. And you guys made a very difficult decision at a young age, in 1980. But obviously I would say that was one that was beneficial for all of us. And I think that's a great, lesson to learn there. You kind of, step one here, you talked about how fast it goes. And I'm quickly realizing that as we just celebrated Rachel's 11th birthday. It's like, man, that really went fast. And now we're also like doing this homeschooling thing, which again, we're kind of in a similar boat with Kristen. We understand that her life would be easier if she just worked. I think it'd be a lot easier for her if she just worked, but it's an investment in the time that we're spending with our kids. So let's kind of go then, that's 1980. You guys make a decision that mom's going to stay home. How did you change or what in your parenting style, as you were maturing and you're kind of getting through this fog of war of diaper changing, are there things that as you're becoming a more mature father, that you're changing your parenting style?
Well, change is maybe it's more evolved. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. You got to adapt, to circumstances and situations, and kind of why you're still keeping your core beliefs as a compass. I mean, that's what changed is society changed a lot, and that's true of any generation. I mean, I think of my dad being born in 1917 and what he saw in the 100 years he lived, from, in technology, and it's just incredible. But the changes between, when we were married in the late 80s or late 70s until... I was
going to correct you there. It was late 70s. Keep track at home.
No, and up till 2000 were amazing. I mean, the potential impact on the kids with regard to the advances in technology and the societal norm shifting, Nintendo to MTV to latchkey kids, there was no such thing growing up. So we really had to be careful as to how that could impact you guys. And we tried to shield you a little bit. I don't think we allowed Nintendo for a long time. And
I know that you didn't pay for them. I know that much.
No, we didn't.
I know.
We didn't want you just sitting in front of a computer and playing.
I know
games.
Pete, Tim, and I would have to get our money pooled together in order to get a video game if we wanted. I do remember that.
Yeah, well, and I do know that Facebook, by the time, say, Annie was in junior high school, was it's hugely influential. And so all these things made parenting more challenging. But part of that is you need to, first of all, I believe in giving kids plenty of rope. And you have to stand away. I mean, as much as you want to micromanage things, you want them to fail from time to time. You learn more from failure sometimes than you do from success. And as instinctive as it is to want to protect your kids, you have to back off every once in a while and just say, hey, this is a learning lesson. And you kind of let them get their nicks and bruises. As much as you want to interfere, you got to kind of let them walk through that. And we made a lot of decisions early on about everything from driving cars to letting you drink in the basement. There's just
Hey now, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? Somebody else.
Yeah, well, maybe you didn't, but you went upstairs and drank that. You didn't do it in the basement. But anyway, so there's a lot of things you have to weigh as a parent. And it doesn't come with a manual. It doesn't. It's just you have to trust your instincts, and part of that is how you were raised and the behavior that was modeled. You modeled, and
well, I think that goes back to the comment you made. The comment about Gopa. If it's not between heaven and hell, if this is not something that's going to be morally, you protect them as much as you can. And allow them flexibility and freedom on these things that are not going to jeopardize their soul was a big thing you guys are really big on. And, one of the analogies I've heard is, giving kids a huge fence, right? So if you have borders, but it's really far away, so you allow them to explore this space. But there's a fence somewhere in this property, right? But you're not just keeping them so close they never get to leave the house and never get to leave the front yard. You're giving them a good psychological space with which they can go explore the world, but you're trying to put these borders and these boundaries up. And I remember there were times when you guys, obviously, it's making it sound like you're this laissez-faire parent. You guys had strict rules that we had to abide by, but they were far enough out that we could trip and fall and learn to pick ourselves up. I thought that was really good, and it also allowed for us as kids, and we're trying to instill this in our own kids to go out and to. You have to, obviously in the sales world, to fail faster, succeed sooner. You have to be able to fall down. You have to be able to make mistakes, and you have to learn from those mistakes. I think you guys did a good job of kind of giving us leeway to do those things, but not to totally hang ourselves and fall off the horse, as it were. So, all right. So you're transitioning now to this stage of life where you're a grandfather. I should almost say, before I get to that, as we became adult children. Right. So think of this. Now we're getting into kind of the later teens and 20s. Is there anything you have from that? Because obviously we're maybe less impressionable, but it's still an important time as a relation between father-son, father-daughter.
Well, it transitions from it's important that when first of all, you love your kids unconditionally. That's number one. But you have to, but as they were growing up, no, yes is easy when you're, hey, yes, yeah, you do. Yeah, Dad, can I go out and do that? Yes. You sit there and you go out, but no is hard. What do you mean? No, a job as a parent when you have kids is you got to give them limits and then you have to be able to say no, and you're not there to be their friend. Transition to when you're college and out of college and young parents, all of a sudden that dynamic has changed. You are friends. It's a different type of friendship, but and the closeness is different. It isn't a parent-child, rearing dynamic. It's really we're friends and we're adults together. And, even though we're generationally different, we have a lot of the same in common. We have the same things in common. We're raising kids, and you're going through it, and we're there to. It's a different dynamic, and raising kids. It's in a golf analogy. There's no mulligans, there's no do-overs, and in raising kids, and if from afar we see something that we don't think is right, we very well may say something. We kind of feel like we don't want to step on somebody's toes, but if it's something we think is something's askew, that's where we'll step in, and as a friend, having gone through parenting, say, hey, you know what, you might want to think about this way. And so it's a different dynamic for sure.
So now you're a grandfather, Papa. Your Papa. So what are your thoughts? You make that transition. You've been doing, gosh, what is Cole, 13 now?
Oh boy.
So what are your, how does trying to be an impactful grandfather, what does that look like to you? What are you trying to model? What are you trying to do, as in that role of grandfather?
Well, number one, you want to see a granddad who just like with his kids, loves them unconditionally, no matter what, supports them, with whom they're able to have fun, buy them donuts, take them to Freddy's, but more than anything else, you want to help them in any way they can to be the best person they can. And I think one of the things that always was, I think, important in raising you kids was the fact that you guys had both sets of grandparents around. And sometimes, most of the times, you didn't care if you disappointed us, but you didn't want to disappoint Nanny and Gopa and Gigi and Papu. Yeah. So, part of that is I want to gain the respect of my grandchildren in that they too can think in the back of their head when they have a tough choice to make. I remember having the birds and bees discussion, and part of it was, it's never an easy discussion. You don't want to ignore it, but I would tell the girls, all right, now, you know what, guys just want to do one thing, it's oh, that's gross. No, I said, but think if you had to tell your grandparents, Nanny and Gopa and Gigi Papu, that you got pregnant, how do you think that would go? And I think in the back of there's always that little, thing, angel on their shoulder. I think, and more than once, I've heard them tell me, you know what, it stuck with me. I don't want to disappoint them. And that's important. So I want to be a source of support, but I also want to have them respect me. And so they're in a situation where if they ever need anything and advice or whatever, they can always say, hey, what would Papa do?
And I think that is absolutely the relationship we had with both sets of our grandparents, is that very traditional and healthy relationship, which is to say we were friends with them, we loved them, they loved us, and we could have fun with them, but we also, to your point, we did not want to disappoint them, right, in any way, shape, or form, because we held them in this almost otherworldly esteem. And I think that's a great place, as a grandfather, that you're trying to model these things. We're trying to model, again, a lot of the things we already talked about: love of family, love of spouse, those kinds of things, but also some level of integrity that hopefully they're seeing in your actions, in your words. So we have 1 minute left. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode on Heroic Fatherhood? Anything that we left out as a final point to the people listening today?
I tell you what, I don't know. We could have talked for hours, but again, I think it's back to loving your wife and setting that example and having that patience with your kids to let them make mistakes, and but again, establishing a moral compass for them. Throughout their life. I know that we worried sometimes whether the kids would stray from the church or going to mass. And I think what we did was and there were times that some of them would, but it's kind of a reboot and getting back to their roots and their moral roots that we established years ago through not only, us, but Nanny and Gopa and Gigi Papu.
Yeah, and I think there's a great point right there. So obviously we saw it from Gigi and Papu and Nan and Gopa, the steadfastness in the faith, whether obviously every Sunday mass, but then also, daily masses. If you were at noon mass in Davenport, you would see Gopa and Nana there every single time. And so, but then also with you guys, right, there was that steadfastness in the faith. We never missed Sunday mass in our lives. We knew that you guys were going to mass. We knew especially during Lent, that you're going every day. We knew these things. And I think that is that level of consistency in the faith, that even when, if you gave someone enough rope that they might venture off, they saw in you someone they respect, and Gigi and Papu, people they respect, Nan and Gopa, people they respected, that was important to these people who I respected. and these people who I think the world of. And so I think that planted those seeds of the faith within our lives. And I think that's another one of those things that we follow your example, much less the words you're preaching to us, but more the example that you set. So with that, we do have to head to a break. Dad, obviously I love you. It's been great having you on these last couple of weeks. And I'm blessed beyond belief to be able to have you and your dad and your father-in-law in my life. So thanks so much for joining me these couple episodes, Dad.
You bet, Joe. Love you.
All right, we're going to head to a short break, and we'll be right back.
Oh, God is good. He is good.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. Thanks for listening to these two interviews I had with my father a couple of years ago. I am a lot like my dad in a lot of ways, and one of them is my propensity to get emotional. And so I kind of joked about this, the little toast I gave to him at the reception after the funeral. I tend to get fairly emotional, and that was something my dad was really good at. I joked that I remember vividly being, 6 years old or whatever it was, and going to Beauty and the Beast and in the theaters and looking at him crying, and that was him. Like, I'm like, you can't cry at cartoons. It's not, you can't do that. And I remember that happening, and I'm a lot more like him today than I was back then. But I've given many talks at men's groups and stuff. And, obviously, when you're talking about fatherhood, your own father's going to come up a lot. And I remember one time he was in the audience, and I just get, I get super emotional, especially with him looking at me and trying to talk about him as the father and everything he did to raise us children. And so this going back through these interviews obviously has been meaningful to me, and hopefully you guys as well have been able to glean something out of these interviews. And there's more to come. I got more to talk about. So I've got some thoughts I need to share yet. Easier said than done, trying to put this stuff on while it's still pretty raw here. But I've got a few more weeks. Again, I think my dad deserves this, to be honest with you, and there's a lot we can learn from him. And so I'm still putting my thoughts together in the coming weeks. But again, he was just a mountain of a man, and the outpouring of support at the funeral and the visitation and all that, it was kind of proof and evidence of that. And again, I've got so much more to say, and I'll do that in the coming weeks. But thank you for joining me for these last two episodes, going through that interview of the Heroic Fatherhood series with my dad. Thanks for joining me today on Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos, and it's time to man up.